Hello, welcome to our short video on ethics in the context of ethics, governance and law. It's a subject that we've been looking at right from the beginning of the module. So I just want to make some basic remarks about it and talk about how you might answer questions on this subject. And as you know, on the exam, there's going to be a compulsory ethics application question, which will be the first of the 6 that you write during the 2 hours. So we're going to look a little bit about what ethics are, why they matter. Then we'll look at the codes which govern accountants, and then we'll end up with a brief overview of how to answer a question on it. So an important topic that's going to run through your education as accountants and obviously through your professional life to come. Ethics we're familiar with perhaps in personal life as the moral principles which govern our behaviour, the things we will and won't do. And in that sense, they're voluntary and very personal and subjective. They're shaped by lots and lots of things, by how we grew up, our education, our religion, our politics. Many factors influence our own personal ethics, and they're a matter of choice, and they clearly change over time. They evolve in response to events and things we learn and things that happen to us. But what we're really concerned with on the module is professional business ethics. So the ethics, the professionally pinned down ethics of an accountant. And you'll know from the beginning, we've been looking at the CIMA code, which has been front and centre in the textbook that we've looked at. And of course, it stems from the International Federation of Accountants Code, which was set up in 1977. So it's a code of conduct with 5 principles that almost 3 million accountants worldwide sign up to, and that's the one we're really focusing on. And that isn't a matter of personal choice. Clearly, it's voluntary in the sense that it's not part of the law, so it's not enforceable by the state. But it's not something you can pick and choose about the principles. The principles govern your behaviour. You're expected as an accountant to conform with them. And if you don't, then breach can result in disciplinary action, ultimately in removal from the register. So clearly an important aspect of your life as a professional accountant, and therefore one which we've, as I say, we've been focused on and will continue to think about throughout your education with us at the university. So why is it such a big deal? Why is so much made of it? This is just, you can Google and find this, the 10 worst corporate accounting scandals of all time. It just gives you an indication of what happens when accountants do not follow their accounting code of principles. Clearly, it's not only down to accountants, but the tension is that businesses don't have to behave ethically. They're basically out to make money. But accountants can, by professional behaviour, they could have alerted the public to problems with control and financial irregularity way earlier than in fact happened, before firms failed, before the huge losses and scandals which you can read about there came about. So the role accountants have is one which serves the public interest as well as their clients' interests. So there's a tension there, because clearly if you're an accountant working in a company trying to make money and you come across problems of financial irregularity or control, you've got a tension. In a way, you want the business to succeed, you want to carry on being paid for them to do your work for them, but you have a wider obligation to society, and the accounting profession expects you not to compromise your principles. So you must refuse to be associated with any behaviour that breaches your principles and is likely to lead to greater losses to the wider society. So you must act in the public interest, and that's what the codes are about. So have a look through some of the scandals and misbehaviours and things, and we touched on these in the corporate governance too, because there's a bit of an overlap here between rules of governance for the sector, professional code of conduct, and the law. And the interaction between them, if you've really got into the study of these things, is going to be something that will inform the very best answers to questions around ethics. Okay, so as I said, the International Federation of Accountants, which represents 2.8 million accountants worldwide, if you count all the affiliated accountants associations like ICAEW and CIMA. And the 5 principles, are at the heart of what you must know about ethics. So we know, in some respects, it seems a kind of woolly subject, but these are pretty knowable. They're solid, they're laid out: integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, confidentiality, professional behaviour. As a very basic, you should know each of these and be able to define them. And there's plenty of material easily available with a quick Google search about what they mean. So know what they mean, remember what they are, and repeat them accurately in response to a question about what's expected, what's the professional conduct expected of accountants in a difficult situation, because these will inform and shape any answer that you give, and that's absolutely as it should be. Why have they been developed? Well, broadly, that 10 worst scandals, the corporate disasters we've talked about before. If accountants don't behave ethically and properly, the consequences can be catastrophic. They can allow behaviour which causes immense damage to continue unchecked. So the codes have been developed to make sure there is an accepted standard of professional conduct which can be enforced. So, as I say, disciplinary action will follow if an accountant is found to have breached the code. This encourages transparency, objectivity, honesty. These are the all of the principles of the code. It's designed to encourage them. It's designed to prevent fraud. It should protect the reputation of the profession, which in turn promotes public confidence in the profession, promotes public confidence in financial regularity and the probity of public accounts, promotes stability in the financial system. And as we've seen with the crash in 2008, where confidence is lost in the system, that can have very real-world catastrophic effects for millions of people. So underpinning proper behaviour in as many ways as possible is clearly essential. And in order to promote confidence, and confidence is what keeps the system running, the ethical codes have been developed and agreed and are enforced. So the huge failures which are allowed to develop when people behave badly, improperly, fraudulently, misreporting, not controlling behaviour, and the sort of symptoms that we looked at in the corporate governance lecture. If ethically behaving accountants are looking at the books and auditing the accounts of companies, they have the potential to flag things up before they get to a catastrophic state. So ethical codes are promoted for the benefit of all. So the public interest is always something to be aware of when you're writing about ethical codes, because that's there at the base of what's trying to be achieved. Now, there's a very simple framework of questions when you're faced with a practical question, as you will be in the exam, which is available to you through the CIMA materials. And we've talked about this in lectures and seminars. You don't have to slavishly follow it, but it gives you a framework of things to think about when you're faced with a practical scenario which you have to give some ethical response to. So check the facts. By that, I mean, look carefully at what you're given and don't make any assumptions. So if it just says, for example, we came across this in the in-class test, if it says somebody's audited the accounts and then someone else claims they've done it badly or the account's to blame for something, don't assume they have done it badly. Look at all the possibilities. Say, if they have done it badly, then A, and if they haven't done it badly, then B. So check your facts, be careful, read carefully what's actually said. And then second thing is identify the ethical question. There will be an ethical question in it, or it wouldn't make much of a question for you, would it? So identify what the ethical issues are, identify any potential legal problems. If you think it's going to be something that's prosecutable, then that's obviously going to be in addition to any ethical dilemma. Some things are absolutely wrong. You're not allowed to do insider dealing, for example, on shares. So anything that suggests there's a legal frame question, also identify that if you can. And then again, at the heart of it, you've got those 5 principles. identify the principles that are affected. Is this a matter of confidentiality? Is this a matter of professional competence? What is the issue? Identify it and name it. But by all means, give us all 5 principles to show that you know them. So go through them one by one, and then if you identify them as relevant, explore that one most, whatever is the most relevant. When you come to think about who the affected parties are, remember to think widely. It's not just the client and the accountant, it's the wider society, it's public confidence in the system. Make sure you're thinking about anyone else who's been mentioned in the scenario who has an interest in what's going on. Now, the way in which ethics questions are difficult to answer is because there is not a single right answer to them. There are things that you must do, and we talked about those. You must identify the professional code, which is not optional for the accountant. But how they respond to a dilemma, there is not a right and wrong answer to that. So consider a number of possibilities and try and talk about that in the round. So say they could consult their professional body, they could consult their manager, think about what's got to be done. And if necessary, seek help. And obviously your professional body, subject to obligations of confidentiality, is an option for you in seeking help. And you can see the conclusion they will always reach for the CIMA is don't be associated with unethical behaviour. So refuse if something you've overheard something, or you see something in a business context which is unethical. Do not be associated with it. Document your response and move away, because the impact on your potential future career is always something to be considered as well. So that's the basic framework to run through. Don't have to follow it slavishly, but they are all things you should think about. And remember, at the heart of it is a discussion of the principles and what those principles mean. So use the fantastic load of study materials that CIMA have provided, and there's links to those on the module site if you can't find them. There's a number of worked case studies which are similar to the things we'll ask you to do. Look at the case study, talk about the principles and the relevant ones, and then suggest a course of action. If you just run through a few and get in the habit of talking about them, then you'll find they're easier to answer when it comes to the exam. Okay, so this is a classic sort of ethical dilemma, and it's one we talked about in the lecture. It's about a dilemma of a financial director of a big company is asked by a family friend for advice, and he is privy to information which would make him able to give very good advice. But if he gives it, it compromises his professional integrity, compromises the confidentiality of the information he's privy to. I'm not going to work through it now because I'd like you, if you would, to go to the case studies, and there is a worked example of this particular scenario, so you can read an answer to it there, and it works through the questions that we've just talked about. But before you go and read the answer, have a look at this question, try and jot down your own answer to it, because it's practice going through these situations, practice about how you identify the issues and how you look at the possibilities that will make you able to do it effectively in the exam. So please do follow that link and have a look at the things, and thanks very much indeed for listening.